Why not me? Shade stood quietly behind the counter of a fashion boutique, watching three women through the glass window. They were laughing together. They looked beautiful, confident, and completely happy. Shade knew them. She had met them many times at social gatherings, business events, and church celebrations. Yet somehow, whenever they were together, she was always the one left behind. She swallowed the lump in her throat. Why not me? She whispered. The question had followed her for years. Shade had built her fashion business from nothing. She started with one sewing machine in a tiny room behind her mother's house. She worked late into the night, designing African dresses, sewing fabrics by hand, and praying over every order. Slowly, people noticed her work. Her little business became a successful boutique. But success had not made her feel successful. She wanted something money could not buy. She wanted to belong. So when the women began inviting her to parties and gatherings, Shade was thrilled. Finally, she thought, I have friends. She began changing herself to fit in. She bought expensive clothes she could barely afford. She stopped wearing the simple dresses she loved. She spent less time at her shop because she didn't want to miss an invitation. Whenever the women laughed at something she didn't understand, Shade laughed too. Whenever they criticized someone, she joined in. Whenever they told her she needed to upgrade her life, she listened. Little by little, Shade forgot who she was. And her business began to suffer. Orders were left unfinished. Customers complained. Bills piled up. One evening, Shade returned to her empty boutique and stared at the unfinished dresses scattered across the table. She sank into her chair and began to cry. I had everything, she whispered. Why did I throw it away just to be accepted? Then her eyes fell on an old Bible sitting beneath a pile of fabric. It had belonged to her mother. Shade opened it with trembling hands. Her eyes landed on a verse she had read many times before, but that night, it felt different. She realized something. She had spent so much time begging people to choose her that she had forgotten that God had never abandoned her. She didn't need to become someone else to be worthy. She didn't need to chase people who constantly made her feel unwanted. And she didn't need to destroy the dream God had placed in her heart just to fit into someone else's circle. The next morning, Shade made a decision. She returned to her roots. She reopened her boutique with renewed determination. She designed clothes that reflected her culture, her creativity, and her faith. At first, business was slow. But she kept going. Then one customer became 2. 2 became 10. Soon, women from different parts of the city were coming to her boutique. Her designs began appearing at major events. Her name spread. Months later, the same women who had once ignored her walked into her shop. They looked around at the beautiful dresses displayed everywhere. One of them smiled awkwardly. Shade, you've really made something amazing. Shade smiled. Thank you. There was no bitterness in her voice. She had finally learned that rejection was not always punishment. Sometimes, rejection was protection. One of the women hesitated. We are having a celebration next weekend. You should come. Shade paused. For a moment, the old Shade wanted desperately to say yes. Then she remembered the lonely nights, the neglected business, and the tears she had cried trying to earn their acceptance. She smiled gently. Thank you for inviting me. But I have something else planned. She watched them leave. For the first time, she didn't feel rejected. She felt free. That evening, Shade stood outside her boutique and looked at the sign above the door. She smiled through tears. She finally understood the answer to the question that had haunted her for so long. Why not me? Because she had been asking the wrong people. She was never created to beg for a seat at someone else's table. God had been preparing her to build her own. And sometimes, the people who leave you out are simply making room for the people who are meant to walk beside you. She'd closed the boutique and looked toward the evening sky. "Thank you, God," she whispered. "I thought you had forgotten me. But you were teaching me to remember who I am." And for the first time in years, she went home with a peaceful heart.